I always do like an energy scan or a body check after I've been hanging out with someone, because that tells me everything I need to know.
Do you think it's difficult or more difficult to make friendships as an adult?
You know, as kids, you're in the same class and you sit next to each other. She's my best friend. Like, it's more situational than it is intentional.
Friendship breakups and dissecting people that we've kind of had as default in our life for a long time, that's hard. What are some practical ways they can actually phase that friendship out?
If a friendship is two ways in its course, it should also be two way in its ending.
As women, we want something to work so bad that we sacrifice more than we should.
It's tough. It's so hard because you also don't want to be like a horrible person.
Yeah. Because of the experiences that you've gone through, because of the energy that you've invested into improving yourself, you kind of expect that of everyone, which is not a healthy thing to do.
All right, balancers, welcome back to the last interview for 2024. This is one I'm really excited for because the subject of today's conversation is one I've not only spoken about with many of you, but one I've also been thinking about a lot myself, something I've had to personally grow through and learn the last few years, and that is the skill or the art of friendship. It's making friendships as an adult. Now, I think I was kind of forced to do this or learn this through moving to Dubai, and it's had many of its challenges, which we're going to speak about today. But on the other side of those challenges has been a beautiful network of friendships. And I'm completely honored and blessed to have two of those amazing friendships with me on the show today to talk about this subject. These are two women I am so inspired by. They uplift me. I feel amazing and like the best version of myself every single time I hang out with them. And they're not strangers to you guys because I've had them both on the podcast individually. So my guests today are Nimi and Rhea. Welcome both back to the Balance Theory.
Thank you.
We're so happy to be back.
It's nice to take what I feel is often really valuable conversations we have over breakfast and coffee. And I thought we could sit down and package that into a really valuable episode for people. So I think to kick things off, it would be really good to get a feel for how you guys experienced friendship growing up. So before you were an adult, what was your relationship like with friends and how did you view friendship? Maybe Nimi, we can start with you.
It's so interesting because just when you were just talking about specifically when you moved to Dubai and how kind of your perspective on it shifted, for me growing up, friendship wasn't really a value.
Interesting.
I had such a close family that family to me was everything. I had so many cousins that my cousins were essentially my closest friends. So anybody outside of that network, to me, I just thought were interchangeable. They're there one day, they're there not one day. And so for me, I just think friendship didn't have as much power as it does to this day. As I've grown older, it's really shifted and changed. But I think I also, and this is quite controversial, but the more I talk about it, I feel like more girls can relate to this. I was really just more friends with guys, with males growing up. I felt like it was, you know, no strings attached. They're so laid back. They're so chill, less expectations, less emotional. And that was just where I found my friendship bonds. That's how I operated. However, now it's completely changed and I'm surrounded by females most of the time. But that was definitely my experience. And I think, Rhea, you can relate to this in terms of a lot of, bullying, a lot of negative experiences really shaped my narrative of what friendships mean, which I know now as a grown 33-year-old woman was totally incorrect and I shouldn't have built that. So it's been a process for sure.
Yeah, super interesting. I'm excited to kind of hear how Dubai's changed your experience. But first, Rhea, you've actually grown up most of your life in Dubai. And I wonder what your experience was like with friendship growing up.
Very similar to Nimi's in the sense that I did grow up where I had a contrast of two emotions. At home, I was super secure and happy and I could do anything in the world because my mom's my best friend. Outside, it was not the case because I did get bullied a lot, like so many of us. So my friend circle was very small. I've always been the person who could actually count the number of friends that I had in my hand. And it's revolved around the concept of quality over quantity. And I think that's sort of escalated into my adulthood as well, where, yes, it's wonderful to have amazing friends and have like a room full of people who are your friends, but at the end of the day, you can be in that same room full of people and still feel lonely. Friendship to me is pure. It's not based on who that person is or what they bring to the table. It's more about that pure love that you feel for each other. It's just, and it's very rare to find that. So I've always been the person with a smaller friend group because of that reason. And I take my time with it. It's not like I need friends, but it's more like if I stumble upon it and it's a beautiful relationship, I'm like, yes, wow, this is amazing.
That's so incredible that you kind of had that perspective from such a young age. I feel like, Nimi, quite like you, like I had a different experience growing up, actually quite different to you guys, where I think I've valued popularity, if I'm being honest with myself, growing up. And so I was always drawn to hanging out with people that were like quote unquote cool, or just kind of always drawn to being in like the popular group. And that for me led me down a path where I was really like acting outside of myself a lot of the time for the sake of fitting in, for the sake of having more friends. If I reflect now, like I remember having hundreds of acquaintances that I would just constantly fill my calendar out with people that were more quantity over quality, right? And that for me has seriously reversed the older I'm getting. So question to you both, do you think it's difficult or more difficult to make friendships as an adult? And if so, why?
I would say, I don't think it's that definitive, because I'll say when I was younger, I feel a lot more guarded because of that narrative that I spoke about, where I felt like I had such distrust in the people out there, in humankind in general, because of my bad experiences, that I just assumed everyone out there was gonna screw me over. I just assumed it. And that's the narrative I had in my head that I had built. And so I was a lot more guarded when I was younger. People didn't have as much access to me. I would say as I've grown older, I've grown in trust with other human beings, and that has come with having positive experiences with people. It's also opening yourself up more to the possibilities of people from different backgrounds and different cultures, which if you're growing up in the same town, the same kind of people who've had the same lives, who've seen the same schools, same shops, the same streets, of course, you're only going to have a one-dimensional experience. And so that's what I thought the world was, but it wasn't. It was just a tiny dip in the world. So I would say actually it's easier as an adult to make friends, because I know exactly what I'm looking for now. I am so much more clear on that. Whereas when I was younger, I was just a lost soul trying to find something that sticks. Whereas now I know exactly what a good friend looks like for me. I know exactly what it takes for me to be a good friend to someone. And you know instantly if that energy aligns. And I think I'm more in touch with my gut instinct nowadays than I ever was. So yeah, I would say as an adult, it's actually a lot easier.
That's really interesting. There's definitely a tight parallel between like your personal growth and then kind of your view on friendships. And because I feel like what you reflect on as yourself, what you're prepared to tolerate, your boundaries, that just is a natural extension into friendships. So I think the two are definitely closely aligned. But what you were saying, like when you grow up in the same town, go to the same school, you're in the same circles, that was me in Sydney. I mean, Sydney is a big city, but you have this suburban kind of life. And so I kind of had a reverse experience where when I moved to Dubai, it was like I had shattered everything I'd known. I was no longer around people that had the same mindset, the same views. And that was actually a challenge for me, both in a positive and a negative way. But it presented a little bit of a difficulty in navigating kind of how I connect with people, because it wasn't this copy paste of how I'd done it my whole life. Rhea, I'm interested to hear kind of your thoughts on this. Do you think it's difficult to make friends as adults?
As kids, I think you're in the same class and you sit next to each other. She's my best friend. You go to a sports club, she's my best friend. Like, it's more situational than it is intentional. As an adult, what I find the best way to make a friend, you need a pen and paper. Just trust me on this. With a pencil, you need a paper with a pencil and an eraser. I want you to make a list. My ideal friend. and write all the qualities that you want in that friend. Loyalty, trust, purity, like you love each other for each other. Not rather than, I think this, if I'm friends with this individual, it'll help me in a certain way. Or it's nice that I'm seen with this individual, that's why I want to be friends. That's not friends, that's pure transaction. Once you write your entire list, you erase the my ideal friend and write the kind of friend that I want to be. That mindset completely changes you, where it trains you to become the person that you want in your life. And I think that opens doors to so many ways. I'm not saying the minute you're an amazing person, the minute you're an amazing friend, every friendship will result in the most amazing outcome. No, you might meet people who might try to take advantage of that. You might meet people who don't align with that. But it's up to you as an adult to let go of that and make room for new, beautiful friendships who bring so much to your life.
That is so beautiful. I love that exercise because really friendship is not a one-way street. And often we think, oh, this person did this or this person didn't do this and therefore they're not the right person for me. But it does go both ways, and it's important to reflect on, am I exercising those values as much as I am expecting them? Do you guys think that you have different friends for different reasons? Like, for example, if you want to be this, like all those values you listed, right? And that's your ideal friend and that's the kind of friend you want to be. Do you feel sometimes you can have some friends in your inner circle that don't tick all those values, but they kind of serve a different purpose? Like, you know, sometimes when you have a problem or something, you'll go to one friend with it and then you might have something else you'll tell another friend. And it's not that they're any less of a friend. It's just like different friends bring like different expertise to the table. Do you think there's like a role for that as well?
100%. If I was to go through all of my friends right now and just do like a quick analysis, every single one brings something different to the table. And I think that we grow up in a society, whether that's friendships or even a partner or a relationship, where we are told like, you're going to find the one, right? You're going to find the person that has all the qualities that you've ever wished for in one person. That's a hell of a lot of pressure for one person. That's expectations on a person. I think that applies to a friendship. Rhea, what you were talking about earlier, of like, this is my best friend and she's my best friend. I realized that there was such a thing on saying, oh, you know, that's my best friend. I don't have a best friend anymore. I have so many friends that are the best in what they're capable of and their capacity that they bring to the table for me. And I think that if we go actually back to the origins of friendship, it was purely based on survival, right? When you go back to tribal days, you had your tribe around you, and whoever you had around you basically determined whether you were going to live or die. And that's quite literally, obviously we're now evolved beings, but now how we conduct ourselves and operate ourselves shouldn't be any different. The people around me, I mean, Rhea might be a great hunter, right? Erica might be a great nurturer. And so these kind of things, like, that's what I want to build around me. That's what I'm focused on. I'm not focused on the one person who's bringing everything to the table. I'm focused on all the pieces of the puzzle that help create that circle for me.
That's so beautiful because different people bring different things and they have different values and different skill sets. And when you look at it with that, I love that analogy of like looking at it from an origin perspective. That's such a nice way to look at it. Rhea, did you have any other thoughts on that?
I do, in the sense that one person can't be everything to you, like what Nimi said so well. In your life, you need to be whole yourself. You can't expect, oh, the minute I have a friend, I'll feel happy. The minute I have a friend, I will feel strong and beautiful. No, you have to do that to yourself. Having said that, a lot of the times in life, you'll have two types of people. One, which is like your soul people. The soul people are in your life just because they are who they are. You can go home in your PJs and just call them and be like, listen, I just want to talk, and they're there. And their friendship is not determined on the basis of who you are, what you do, and how amazing you are in your job. But on the other hand, you also need to have this other group of people that inspire you, that motivate you, that empower you. And I don't mean in the sense of like a competition basis, more in the sense of, oh my God, she's doing amazing things. I'm so proud of her. She inspires me. She makes me want to think better, do better. Both people are important because you need to nurture your soul and you need to grow. And that's the best way to find your tribe.
That's so beautiful, because when I reflect on like my closest friends, you're right, some of them do cross over, but there are generally that two category of people. And that's a really nice way to actually look at the role of like different relationships in your life. So I guess like this is all well and good. Like when you've got a group around you, you can kind of assess them and analyze them and be like, okay, do they fit? Do they align? What kind of friend are they? What kind of friend am I? But when it comes to like meeting people for the first time, it's kind of like when you go on a date for the first time, although I'm very out of experience in that department. Please don't call me on that. Do you guys think there's like a period of time that you should give someone, kind of like give people a chance to see if there's a fit? Do you think there's a role that intuition plays and you can know in the first 5 minutes? And I'll quickly weigh in on my thoughts. When I have people on the podcast, it's honestly such a great way for me to vibe check straight away. And I honestly know within the first 5 minutes if this is going to be an ongoing relationship or if this is just going to be a great conversation for the show. With both of you, I probably knew in the first 30 seconds that like you're both women that I connect with. And it's such a weird thing that you can know it straight away. And I guess my question is, if you don't have that feeling, but you're genuinely like wanting to get to know someone in a friendship capacity, is there a period of time that you would give someone to get to know them? Or is it like intuition says no, it's a no?
It's so interesting because if you would have honestly have asked me maybe 6 to 8 months ago, I would have said, give people time.
Thank God, because that's when I met you.
Yeah. Give people time. You know, they'll show who they truly are, and giving you the background and giving you the context of what the mindset I grew up with, which is I distrust everyone. I was in a space where I wanted to trust people more. However, it's also burnt me in a lot of spaces where I felt like, follow your gut instinct. Now I know in the first meeting, like you said, how you felt good energy. I also like sense bad energies, and that's also okay. 8 billion people in the world. You're not going to vibe with everyone.
Yeah.
But listen to your gut, listen to your body. I always do like an energy scan or a body check after I've been hanging out with someone, because that tells me everything I need to know, right? I sit there for 1 or 2 minutes and I'm like, how do I feel? Do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel inspired? Do I feel motivated? Or do I feel drained? Do I feel smaller? And do I feel lost? Because that's the energy that I have taken on from someone else, or that is leading on from certain words that someone has said that's made me think a certain way about myself. And so I always think, do I feel bigger or smaller after leaving someone? And I think that there's no time period that you can put on it. A lot of people have this 3 strike out policy. You know, I'll give them 3 chances. Why?
Yeah.
The first one already told you. You know, so follow that gut instinct. And I feel like as women, we're a lot more in tune with that in general.
Yeah. Rhea, what do you think?
See, I'm a person, I trust my instincts instantly, but I'm also like a softie. So
how do you balance those?
It's really tricky, because there are times where, because of the experiences that you've gone through, because of the energy that you've invested into improving yourself, you kind of expect that of everyone, which is not a healthy thing to do, because everyone has their own experiences, the own things that they've gone through in their life that makes them who they are. But it's up to me at the end of the day that regardless of what you do, it will not affect me. Meaning, my energy is in my hands in a way. Meaning, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, at the end of the day, if I feel that my energy is getting affected, I'm just going to block out, regardless. Even if you're a friend who I've been with for a really long time, the minute I feel like this equation has changed, it's time to leave. Life is too beautiful to make something work when you know it's not working. We want a friendship to work. We want a relationship to work. But a lot of times it doesn't work that way. And it's up to us to read it. Can happen in the first interaction, can happen after years. There are so many times where you're friends with someone for years and then you feel, oh my God, like I don't think we align anymore. And I think that's okay. But it's important as a person to read the energy and accept the fact that it's time to let go, and that's okay. It does not mean that he or she is a bad individual, but I respect myself enough to know that for the work that I'm investing in my life, this is not for me.
I'm really glad you brought this up because I was going to bring it up next. And that is when you've had friendships for so long. And I think it's inevitable, right? Like if you're working on yourself, the people that you aligned with or shared similar values to 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's likely that at some point there's going to be some differences. Does that mean you're not going to be friends? No, because like you said, there is that nurturing soul
Correct.
kind of friendships that can still exist and be true if you've split paths or have different values moving on. But it is true that often the time, I feel especially in like your late 20s, you do have this experience where very long-term friends no longer feel they fit the glove anymore. And we almost keep them there just because of the longevity that sits behind it. I want to get practical with this because I feel like friendship breakups are really hard and they're really not spoken about enough. For me, it's really not as simple as, all right, I'm just going to cut this person out of my life. There's a lot mentally that sits on my shoulders on a weight point of view. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of, how do I even phase this out if this person's just in my life? A lot of the time it's someone in a circle that you see all the time. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. For anyone listening that really resonates with this, is someone in their life that's become a bit toxic, they no longer resonate. What are some practical ways they can actually phase that friendship out?
Well, it's interesting because I literally went through this, I think, a couple of months ago, and I myself was trying to navigate what the best way to handle this is, because yes, you are your own priority, but also the thing I like to believe is everyone I meet in life, I either leave a beauty mark with them or a wound, and I never want to be the person who leaves someone with the wound. And so old me would have friendship breakups where I would cut them off cold, and I was so savage with it. Or I would send them, like, you know, when you break up with someone and you send them a text.
It's over.
Yeah. And I would send them an explanation and I would leave it at that. And I wouldn't even open their messages when they respond because I know I am so done. So I think that was good to protect my own boundaries, but I wasn't considering the other person. I wasn't holding a space for them to communicate their potential issues or challenges. And I think that if a friendship is two ways in its course, it should also be two way in its ending, right?
Nice.
So let's have a conversation about it. It doesn't change my perspective at all. I leave you with love and I wish you so much love and light in everything that you do. But I just think we've run our course. And it's that analogy that Tyler Perry used in one of his speeches. And he goes, you're a rocket ship and you're just shooting up into the universe. And you know those pieces that fall off of the rocket ship? That's an analogy for friendship as you're growing and changing. And those pieces sometimes just have to go in order for you to elevate and traject. And that's what I always think about. And so it's that if we're talking about practicality and what can we actually do, hold that space for a conversation. Don't be too shy of it. Give that person the respect to say, this is how I'm feeling, and be very honest and vulnerable with it. And I feel we're at the point that XYZ, we cannot go on anymore. I love you, but I'm wishing you well from afar. And I just feel like this is where our friendship has taken us. And so I'm at a space now where I feel like I've grown the courage enough to have those conversations, but also respect the other person enough to have those conversations. And it's still something I'm very much practicing. So I'll let you know if it goes well or not. But yeah, it's tough. It's so hard because you also don't want to be like a horrible person.
Yeah, I was just thinking like that's quite a bold thing to do. Like especially if it's a one-sided thing, like if you're particularly feeling like it's not aligned and you don't feel elevated or inspired by that person, it's just not someone you want to give time to. Again, like you said, Rhea, it doesn't mean they're a bad person. It's just you've made a decision that...
But also you don't know if they feel it or not, right?
True.
It might be one way just from your side, but I haven't even had the conversation to know if you feel the same way. You might do. And you might have things and feedback for me as a friend. If we're always trying to be the best friend we can be, okay, I'm not perfect. There's times where I could have slipped up. You're going to give me the feedback. I won't know until I have the conversation.
Would you say this is true for people that are not like in your inner circle, but are still like friends? Let's just say in like the second circle, if that makes sense, if you know what I'm getting at. Would you say the same kind of conversation would apply? Or do you think at that level you could just taper it off?
What do you think?
See, with me, it's to answer your question. For me, my energy is very expensive. Meaning, if I love you, and I care for you, meaning you're a friend that I really adore and I really care, we are going to fight, we are going to argue, I'm going to invest everything in my power to make sure we make this work. And in case we don't make this work, it's okay. I know that we tried our best to share our thoughts and to find some way to solve it. And if the answer is no, it's no. But if you're someone who I've just met, or if someone who I feel is so far aligned with my path and my values and who I am as a person, I'm genuinely not going to invest the time. Because I don't want to end it on a negative note with someone who I don't want to even invest the energy with. But if I love you, listen, we are going to fight. And I think that's beautiful that way, because energy is so powerful. It's so beautiful. It's everything. And you only invest that kind of energy with people you love.
So that would then be the inner circle.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Okay, great question. The second one you asked about the second circle. How do you do that? Because I don't love the people in my second circle.
Yeah.
So how do you just like create distance and just create a pattern of just like not really responding as much and not being in touch as much?
No, I think you need to give them the respect enough for them to know what's happening, so you don't just cold, you know. But at the same time, you have the understanding to initiate a conversation. If there's someone who's not willing to reciprocate, you know, this is not my person. You tried. But it's not as intense as how I would to a friend I really care about.
Yeah.
Like, babe, we have to make this work, or at least try to make this work.
So with energy being precious and energy being expensive, that second circle that I would say I'm not as deeply invested in my mind, I just don't think they are worth my energy at all. In my mind, I'm like, okay, well, we've got this far. This is how I feel. Do I want to sit down and have a conversation with you? No, not really.
Because this is kind of like when I'm thinking about it, my inner circle are the people that inspire me, the people I go to with my dreams. I share those intimate things about my life with. I think to know, like, to ask them what's going on in their life, and I'm genuinely invested, and it's two ways. The people that sit in that second circle, I still care for them, but these might be the friends that over 15, 20 years have kind of taken a back seat. They're still there and I still care for them, but potentially there's not that alignment or two-way kind of effort as much. Yeah. So for me, I kind of feel like at that level, I don't know if having a conversation is worth it. But then I also think because of the longevity, it's almost weird to just not say anything.
Yeah.
So it's like a really difficult one to navigate. Like if you say something, it kind of feels unnecessary. But if you don't, it kind of feels like
cold.
Yeah. So this is just one I've been thinking about, and I feel a lot of people resonate with, because of course, like with an inner circle, it's like any relationship. Like you have to give feedback. You have to be open to receiving feedback in order for that relationship to be at its best. Like there's no other way. And if you're not open, then I just feel you're doing yourself and that relationship a disservice. But it's kind of that second layer. And I'm almost thinking, just as I'm saying this, like, is it just a case that I'm just putting energy into then a secondary layer that maybe doesn't deserve it as much? Like, should we really delineate that inner circle from that secondary so you don't have that effort on your conscience? I don't know.
Are they worth the energy? If instantly you thought no, that's that. The thing is, as women, we want to make things work. We want the friendship to work. We want something to work so bad that we sacrifice more than we should to a point where we're like, I'm trying so hard to make it work. But everything is round, meaning whatever energy you give, you need to get back. If you're not getting it back, it's not worth it.
It's interesting though, because as we're speaking now, I'm thinking about a situation where I have been so back and forth about, where I actually regret how I handled it. And I went cold on someone. I was so hurt that I went so cold. And this was someone in my inner circle. And I went so cold, no contact, didn't reply to messages, calls, nothing, because I was so hurt. I don't regret reacting like that, because it was very valid how I reacted. But now it's been over a year and I'm constantly thinking about that person. And I'm like, Nimi, you're better than that. And they deserved better than that.
Yeah.
They had enough credit in the bank for all the good that they did in that friendship that you guys had. that they deserved a conversation, and you didn't give that conversation to them. And you know, what's real is like closure in friendship.
Yeah.
100%.
It's so needed because it lingers for
It
years.
so does.
I'm living proof. A year later, I'm thinking about it. So I've been in between whether I should maybe call them, maybe message them to meet up for a coffee. But now I'm like, it's been a year. You know, they're so over it probably. And I'm still, and because now my emotions have calmed down, now I'm ready for it, but it's not according to my timeline.
Correct. Yeah.
They wanted the conversation back then. So yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong. I don't think there's a blueprint to this. I think it's figuring it out, but also looking back and knowing like I have no regrets. I have no regrets like on how this will work out. Unfortunately, I do. So I'm living with that torment kind of thing.
I think like it's never too late to have a conversation, or at least extend an olive branch, because then at least you know, like,
True.
Sometimes what I've learned is that closure doesn't always come from having a conversation. Like sometimes you can actually find that on your own. But if you don't know whether a conversation is available to you or not, then you're always left wondering, what if?
Yeah.
But if you extend and it's not, then you can find the closure on your own.
At least you tried.
Yeah. I think if it's taking your energy, it's often interesting. Like you don't know if the other person's also feeling similarly, because energy attracts, like, you know, like with manifesting, right? If you're thinking about something or someone and you're growing that closer to you, it could be the same thing. Like you don't know if that person's sitting here thinking, God, I just wish we could have a conversation, or like you never know.
No, true.
But yeah, friendship breakups and kind of dissecting people that we've kind of had as default in our life for a long time because we sat next to them in kindergarten or because we worked together in our first jobs, like that's hard. And it's so amazing to make new friendships when you're kind of growing and evolving and then attracting new people, but kind of working out how you either part ways or navigate existing friendships and the role they play is not only important to discuss because it's hard to do, but it's also very important to your personal growth, which is why it was a conversation I really wanted to bring to the show. So love both your thoughts on that topic. I want to quickly shift for the rest of this podcast to a conversation that I think both of you will resonate with, and a lot of the listeners. As kind of high performing women, I mean, both of you are doing incredible things all the time. Like honestly, you inspire me both so much, and I'm so proud of you both. And there's so many women out there too achieving so many things all the time. Now that we're getting into the holiday season, it's Christmas, it's New Year, it's generally a time a lot of people take off, go away, they have holidays. I want to talk about this idea of doing nothing or resting. Taking that time for yourself, coming off the back of like a busy year, and also balancing that with like prepping for the new year. How do you guys manage to actually switch off or really like embrace that time, or otherwise if you have thoughts?
I think the most rebellious thing that you can do in this time is rest. I think we've been fed as a community to love the art of being busy rather than the art of being at peace. We wear a productivity like a badge. Oh, I slept for 1 hour. And we say it with no regret, and we say it with like, yes, and we're like, oh my God, yes, you go, girl. But we don't realize that if you're genuinely exhausting yourself to a point where, yes, you're achieving great things, you will reach a point in your life where you have nothing else to give. And the holidays are a great time to understand the beauty of resting, because at the end of the day, rest is being super, it's an avenue rather to energize yourself even more, to do better and to achieve better. And in the holidays, guess what? You're being paid to do that because it's the holiday and you can stay at home and enjoy the time. But it's integral to identify that there is need for rest. I think 2020 was a period where a lot of us realized the beauty of rest, realized the beauty of introspection, realized that life doesn't have to be one thing after another. You do need to recharge before you can go out there and do better. And having that concept in your mind shifts your entire mindset, especially as high achievers.
Is that something you always embrace, or did you have to learn it?
I had to learn it. I was the kind of person, in fact, there was an interview that I gave a long time ago. I was like, my work is not what I do, it's who I am. It was genuinely the person that I was, where my worth, my value was my work, was being busy, was being booked every single day. I wore it like a badge of honor. But I reached a point where I got so exhausted, so emotionally drained, to a point where I wasn't even doing great in my work because I was exhausted. And the minute you reach that point, you realize, oh my God, how important it is to rest, how important it is to invest in yourself. I mean, peace is something no amount of money in the world can buy. Your sense of I'm worth it, I'm at peace, I'm happy, and I deserve this rest. No amount of money can buy you that at all.
That's beautiful. Definitely an incredible thing to be able to embrace wholeheartedly. Nimi, what about you? How do you find when it comes to kind of rest periods, time off?
I think both of you would agree with this. I'm like such a 200% person every single day, and I know you both are as well, showing up 200% with all the hats that I wear. And I'm not sure I believe in switching off. And I think that what I mean by that is I think there's not switching off, but there's just different modes and different programs that I tap into at different times of the year. And I have to mentally prepare myself for it. So I know when I'm going to be winding down towards the holiday times, and I have to quite literally schedule it in. I am just that person.
Block the calendar.
Yeah, block the calendar. I'm doing these certain things. As you both know, I'm a really big time blocker. So when it comes to, managing my time, essentially, I don't go from one extreme mode to the other either. I ensure all of my days have a moment of me in it. So I'm not going from crazy 20-hour days to all of a sudden having to force myself to switch off. It's impossible. It's like running a 100-meter race and then trying to slow down, right? It's going to take another 100 meters to be able to do that. I like to just ensure that I'm going into a different mode. I'll give you an example. 3 months of the year, as you both know, I go to the UK, and I knew that wasn't going to be 20-hour days. Right? That's not the season that I was going to have. I was going to have a really creative space for myself. What did that look like? That looked like going for walks. That looked like being at one with nature. That used to look like going, having a coffee in my garden. The ideas I came up with that I would never have been able to come up with in those 20-hour days when I was hustling in Dubai, the difference was crazy. And so I wasn't switched off necessarily. I was just tapped into a different mode. And I think that's important to do because all these different modes serve me in so many different beautiful ways that I think the pressure to switch off for a lot of us in the world that we live in, where we have social media at our access to us, there's always constantly things going on. Our work emails are coming straight to us, so we feel like it's a crime not to reply instantly. It's this holding space for yourself that, I'm in this mode right now and this is my main focus. I'm not going to force myself to have to not look at emails, not look at social media, not do this. I feel like that puts just a lot of pressure, specifically just on me, speak for myself. It puts me on so much pressure that I'm trying to force myself to be something. So I think there's that balance and that focus of mode that you want to be in.
I really actually love this idea of switching in between modes and really thinking about, okay, if Christmas, New Year is like a rest mode, what does that look like? What are the things that I like to do? And I actually think a lot of people will resonate with you. I personally do. Rhea, maybe you do as well, when you say it's very hard to go from being on and working and hustling and doing all the time to then cold turkey doing nothing.
And then going back on.
Right? And it's almost like you need a time lag to slow down and to go up. And so you really only have this couple days in the middle where you're actually off. But the reason I say that is a lot of people actually really like what they do. They love what they do. Now I'm even thinking over Christmas, New Year, I want to be planning for January, but it's meant to be my off time, right? And you're right. That puts so much pressure on ourselves. So another way I like to look at it, and if we're talking about having balance, is, we have this idea that we give 100% every day, but what 100% looks like greatly varies, especially as women. We have cycles. So maybe around your menstrual cycle, giving 100% doesn't look like 100% when you're ovulating. That's when you have the most energy. And so 100% every day could look like, today I had 25% to give. Today I'm so jet lagged and this is the most productive thing I've done today, but that's probably the max I've got in the tank. That's my 100% today, right? So not just in the holiday time, but outside of that, embracing and understanding that every day 100% looks really different and not feeling guilty for that has really helped me shift my perspective on actually kind of easing into the holiday period, because I'm no longer benchmarking myself at 100% every day means I've done 10, 12 hours nonstop. I'm respectful of the fact and more graceful with myself that really does ebb and flow, which also on the flip side means that during the holidays, if I wake up feeling super motivated and inspired, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm not going to, ideate or put down some ideas or brainstorm today just because it's the holidays. It means I can kind of ebb and flow with it. So I think this kind of more graceful way of looking at it is a very nice and productive way for people to approach kind of that season.
Yeah, and it's so much easier on us, isn't it?
100%.
I think that when you're going back to, if you discuss a world where someone's doing a 9 to 5 job and they look forward to their time off because they're just non-stop, potentially even in a job that they don't even like, that's when they're so looking forward to that time off and being able to switch off. What we're talking about is a world where we are quite literally in control of our schedules, the three of us, right? We are entrepreneurs. We are trying to run our own businesses. And so even switching off to me isn't an option. It's not an option because I'm really trying to create something that I truly believe in. It is me. It's so personal that it's not a case of clocking off at 5 o'clock, So
you can't.
You can't. It's not possible. It's not even that I want to. I don't want to clock off at 5 o'clock because there's so many things that I want to do and create and discover about myself. So the ebbs and flows that you're talking about, it's so real and it's so true. And it's a message that so many people need to hear more about.
Yeah.
It's so true and it's a good shout because I feel even now that as you both know, like I stopped working in a firm 5 months ago, right? So the switch to me from that structure and that stability to being more independent and in a flow, I'm now also even thinking, I'm still looking at like December, January as like, that's my time off when really I'm on my own schedule. So that in and of itself is something I probably need to part with because I'm in a season now of building and growth. And that means 1 to 2 years of me putting my head down. Does that mean I'm going to have no holidays? No. But that might mean over Christmas, New Year, it's like Christmas Day, New Year's Day, I have those days off. But in between, like I'm still putting my head down and focusing. And same goes for people listening. Like they still might have a 9 to 5 and that is their time to switch off. But that's also time for them to just do what they want as well. So this idea of like doing nothing and feeling guilty for that, I think we need to flip that and be thinking more about what can I just do that fuels me? If that looks like being busy or being productive, or that looks like just taking time in the garden, that's it for you,
Yeah, I love that.
100%. Like I have the reason I was smiling when Nimi spoke about that was because I was in Bhutan recently and I did the hike to a tiger's nest. So
in this beautiful dress, might I add?
In this gorgeous, not this one. It was
always looking 10 out of 10. This girl.
Nobody else could do it but you.
But you know what? Coming back to switching off, right? As an entrepreneur, you can't really completely switch off because you're the boss. At the end of the day, people's livelihoods depend on you. The reason I'm saying this, I was on a trek in Bhutan to Tiger's Nest. Have my stick in one hand and I feel my phone vibrating and I check and it's someone out here who needed our Ray books delivered to a certain place. And if I didn't answer that call, for that book to reach in stores, it would take another 3 weeks. As a business owner, I could not afford that. So guess what I did? On the way to Tiger's Nest, I was like, yes. But that is the way you have to function as an entrepreneur. Meaning, I don't necessarily, like you said, need the entire day, but I'm in Bhutan. I can attend a call and just be like, hey, okay, yeah, sure, done. I clock off. Meaning, this is so important to me. And if I don't address this problem, that can be huge effects. So I address this. But menial things, like, I don't know, like an invoice that has to be sent, that can wait after I'm back. Sure. So you pick and choose what works.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like, the moral of the story is that living in extremes either way probably never is productive because I think that's not reflective of everyday life. Like, the extremities don't exist every day. You really do have to ebb and flow and be a lot more flexible. So I hope for everyone listening that's given them a little bit more comfort in moving into the holiday period, taking a little bit more grace with themselves. I mean, our whole conversation today on friendship, on doing nothing, on dealing with kind of long-term friendships that are no longer aligned. You've both given such beautiful insights. Again, I'm very grateful for the both of you and the friendship we have. I know it's crazy to think I've only known the both of you for under 12 months, but genuinely I'm very grateful to have you two in my life. And I'm really excited to see what this next few years brings for you both, because I can just see where it's going and it's special.
Oh, you're so sweet. I loved being on the show with you the first time, so this is even more special to me.
Right. And to think that our friendship started because of this podcast.
Yeah.
So thank you
Right?
both for saying yes. Actually, Rhea, I don't know if you know, so I had Nimi on and then I had such a good chat with her. I said to her after the show, I said, is there anyone in your circle that you think I would have an amazing conversation with? And she actually put me in touch with you.
I know. Nimi
So
said that.
thank you both for saying yes, for coming on the show, and again for coming on today and sharing your thoughts.
An honor.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank you.
Thank you.